thinking about how the world is shifting, wondering if they're keeping up or we're getting left behind, questioning who telling our stories and who really owns them. Because in a time where everybody's watching, not everybody's building, and if we're serious about the future of the Bahamas, then we are to ask ourselves, what are we creating and who are we creating it for? This is about more than content. It's about culture, systems, and ownership. Today, we're not just having an under the tree conversation, we're shaping a vision because every big idea starts with a simple thought, something to think about.
To think about with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. What we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative 242.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And today we're going to have an awesome conversation with some bright young mind here, a creative who is on the move, making things happen in her own space. And so, without further ado, we would like to bring on Miss Danielle Minnis. How are you today?
I'm okay. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, we're pleased to be able to have you for this little small niblet of time in all of the great things that you are doing. So maybe you could just, because you got quite a big background as to what you were all about, but just to let the people know out there, audience, what it is in your background that excites you the most.
That excites me the most. I think when it comes to storytelling and creative work, probably just that I have experience with both the practical and the theoretical. So I grew up on film sets. My parents owned and still do own a video/film production company. So I grew up on and around sets, did some video work and some sound work and things like that. Then I went to university and got a bachelor's degree in digital media studies, which involves practical work as well, but also involves learning more about the systems behind and the reasons behind why we create and what we create for all media, for film and TV, for music, and of course, it's digital media studies. So for stuff like social media. So I think that's what I'm the most excited about or the most proud of, that I have experience with both practical and theoretical side of creativity.
That's great because that sets the stage where you know how your capacity is today and you know what your potential are, and so from the theory part you know how to navigate that, and then from the practical side you know how when you get knocked down you get back up. You don't just stay there, right? So that's powerful. So digital media studies, just to touch on that a little bit, what does that mean to somebody going to a university or somebody wanting to go to university who are in the creative space? What would that speak to them as saying?
Well, it's the study of media, what it means and how it affects society and culture. So, for example, you learn about something like the news, for example, how it's supposed to not necessarily teach people what to think, or how to think, but what to think about, and how our biases, as even though we try to remain objective, how our biases kind of seep through, and how to try to mitigate that, or how to try and understand it. Or for something like film, it's what you would expect. We learn about the different kind of story structures and the niches and genres, and how when we would use certain structures or certain techniques. So it's just learning. It's learning about the media, learning about film and TV, the history and how to do it, and then how it affects people, why it affects people.
Yeah. Okay. So something to think about normally comes up with a quote or a thought that we want to pivot on from this in the show. And so we say that you focus a lot on YouTube, from what I understand, in recent times, in terms of how that could be I guess a conduit for a lot of creatives in the Bahamas. So if YouTube is the new television, then the real question is, are we just watching the future or are we building it? And so we have two questions for the audience that we posted before, when we say, when you look at the Bahamas right now, do you think we truly understand what YouTube represents, or are we willing, are we still treating it like something secondary? And the second question is, what would it actually look like for the Bahamian creators to stop just participating and start owning the space in a real sustainable way? So audience, if you can answer those questions in the chat or make comments on it, then as we go through the show, we'll ask the good Danielle to elaborate on those, or if my little bit of knowledge have any bearing, I might be able to chime in also. So what does the quote mean to you, Danielle?
Are we just watching the future? We as in Bahamians, right?
Yeah, mainly, yeah. But whoever's watching the show.
Yeah. If this is present tense, I believe we're just watching the future. I don't think Bahamians or members of the global South in general quite, this kind of already answers one of the questions that you asked the audience. But I don't think we take YouTube or online media in general, whether it's Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, any of those things, as serious forms of entertainment, especially not like film and television, right? It is, we call it content creation, but it is, when you break it down, it is still forms of video production. And if we look at the, not even widely successful in terms of money or views, but just persons who do YouTube or Twitch or anything as for a living, or is trying to do actively trying to do that kind of thing, there isn't, I could maybe think of one or maybe two Bahamians doing it right now. So I think in general, we're watching the future of YouTube. We're not building it. That's something that I would like to see change, and something I want to help lead or inspire in people. But yeah, I think we're just watching it right now.
Yeah, because I saw some stuff on TV, which I hardly ever watch. But when I watch the news with my mom, then I tend to pick up on some of the commercials and stuff. And there was this ad saying there was supposed to be this creators, I don't know if you can call it a conference or forum or whatever it was, with the Prime Minister, where there was supposed to be some handshaking where persons were complaining about YouTube not allowing them to do something. I don't know what the something was. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I wasn't familiar with what happened, but I know that the Bahamas isn't a part of YouTube's partnership program. And what that does, it allows YouTubers to make money off of the views that they get. YouTube is one of the few countries that doesn't have that. There are some ways around it, but we don't have the same luxury as Americans do or Germans do of just uploading and making money. So that might be
What they were
what
talking
it
about.
was.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I just figured you might have been on top of everything, knowing this is a passion of yours. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so let's get back there. So we're thinking about how fast storytelling is changing. What shifts do you think most people in the Bahamas still aren't fully seeing yet when it comes to YouTube and digital storytelling?
What shift?
What would you like
Just
to see them focus on?
I think it's just I don't think people in the Bahamas realize just how important and impactful YouTube and online storytelling is right now. YouTube has, I think, over 2 billion users. It has like over 1 billion hours of watch time a day. I think the Netflix CEO, I believe it was, the Netflix CEO said that their biggest competitor isn't Prime, it isn't Apple TV, it isn't Disney Plus, it's YouTube. That's where people are going. Entire generations are growing up now having never watched cable. They don't know what cable is. They don't own
Right.
a Blu-ray machine or a DVD or VHS set. They just watch YouTube. Um, Even now, people buy televisions. I know I bought a television just to watch YouTube and maybe stream some stuff. I never got cable.
Right.
So I don't think people, and I know people think it's important and understand it's important, but it is overtaking film and television and it's making Hollywood and a lot of these traditional storytellers nervous of just how big and powerful this thing is. So I think that uh, that's what most people aren't fully seeing yet. I think people know it's important and that it's impacted their lives in some way because most people are on it every single day,
Yeah.
but they don't know the scale of just how big and important it's become.
Yeah. I have a aunt, a cousin more so, but aunt because of seniority, etc.
Mhm.
Her daughter was just telling me the other day that her mom only watches YouTube, and she's been, I guess, in her early 80s or late 70s. I think no, early 80s, and so forth. My children and some of their friends, I pulled out a cassette tape, and I showed them how we used to have to turn the wheel in order to get the magnetic tape to line back up so it don't fall apart and get tangled up and whatever and stuff like that. But you all know everything is just digital, so which is good. Digital is highly efficient, but we have to be able to leverage it so we could benefit from it, and not necessarily just for money, but like you say, for storytelling. Because if we don't tell our story, we're gonna have a challenge going forward. So we're hearing that YouTube is a new TV, but what does that actually mean in practice? Not just for viewers, but for creators and industry itself.
The
What does it do for you?
I think the main thing I would want people to understand about this when hearing YouTube is the new TV is that there are no more gatekeepers. Like the old TV was, you had some people in suits telling you what stories you could tell, what stories you can't tell. Um, this isn't gonna, you have to take this out, you have to put this in. That isn't the case anymore. Make what you want to make, tell the stories you want to tell, break the rules. There are certain genres now on YouTube that it's YouTube native. It only truly exists on YouTube. You cannot do, for example, let's plays or commentary videos, certain kind of film reviews. You can't do that anywhere else but on YouTube. Even certain like ARGs are like alternate reality games that
Right.
kind of blends gameplay with real life participation, sometimes filmmaking and stuff too. You need stuff like YouTube for that. So when I hearing YouTube is the new TV, no more gatekeepers and almost infinite possibilities with the kind of stories you can tell now. There are way more options.
Good. So we often talk about the global south having stories but not always the system. Why do you think regions like ours haven't fully embraced YouTube as a serious storytelling platform? And that's not necessarily from an individual point of view, but from an industry and even, I guess, an investor's point of view, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I think the most obvious is one that we already kind of touched on already
Yeah.
is the money side of it. People don't really see ways to make money from it, so maybe persons aren't investing too much time or money into it. But also, I just think that they don't really see it as a possibility for us yet. I think once we have a few Bahamian YouTubers make it globally, then I think other persons will see it as possible for them as well, and
Yeah.
will
Follow.
follow and try to embrace YouTube as a serious storytelling platform after that.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything physically stopping us, like camera equipments and software is some of the least expensive, some of the cheapest it's ever been. It's easier now to start making content than it ever has been. So I think it's more mental, a mental thing than it is financial. And it's definitely not a talent issue. So I think it's just a mental issue.
Well, I mean, definitely a talent issue if I talking on YouTube. So I mean, but I started with a old phone, using it as a webcam and a software, which was just above bubbler status. Right? It just,
I haven't heard that word in a while.
Basic camera. Well, unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately because I'm blessed to have had the opportunity. I've been from digital from before it started or around the very beginning straight through to now, billing, Pataco, etc. So I got all of the phones, at least I maybe missing one or two phones out of the whole series of phones that we went through, somewhere in my closet. And so I still remember these things, including the brick. Yeah. Cool. So do you think we're still a mindset here that separates YouTube content from real production? And what needs to change for people to start seeing the same level of storytelling? So if we have all of these storytellers out there and YouTube is so accessible, because we always talk about nobody has access to do these things because we need all this money and nobody's giving us access and this, and we still fighting the majority rule movement to try and have access to everything. But YouTube give us this access. It mightn't give us the money, as you mentioned. So what's the mindset that needs to change? Particularly with the young people who are born into a digital environment, who this is native to. Yeah.
Again, I think I started to touch on this as well. People, there's content creation and then there's online video production. I think because we call it content creation, people see it as less than video production. I think having production in the name makes people see it more seriously, but it is video.
I think the content production is higher than video production, no? I mean, that's the way I would look at it, but...
I would say it's the same thing. YouTube is video production. We just call it something different because it's going online. So I think because it's online, people don't take it as a serious form of storytelling. I think it's a mindset thing. I think the fact that you see it as higher or the same is good, but I don't think a lot of people do. And I think I know that for sure because when I talk to people in the space, other creatives, other persons who are doing the Twitch streaming or want to do the Twitch streaming and the YouTube content creation, one
Mm-hmm.
thing they say a lot is that you have to do it on your own. You have to do it yourself. It's almost always a one man band. If you early in your YouTube career and you want to hire editors and stuff, persons would say you're trying to run before you could walk. You need to do everything yourself. That is unheard of in film and television or in music production. Can you imagine someone saying they want to be in a band and
Right.
someone tells them you need to learn how to play the drum, how to do the bass, how to do the guitar, how to sing? That's insane,
Right.
right? But we don't see YouTube and content creation as video production. So we don't put two and two together that uh, you need help. For one, you need to it's a creativity is collaboration in a lot of ways. We need each other, we need to work together, we need to collaborate. And I think it's through that collaboration too that people would see it as a real production when people are working together to achieve an end goal. So I think maybe that's the change that people need to start happening in their minds, to see it as the same level of storytelling, see content creation, see social media, YouTube, Twitch as a video production.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's what I think it is.
Yeah, and I guess when you say from a video production, because like I have some friends that they just pull out their phone and then they start streaming and shorts, etc., and then they turn off the phone and they go. Whereas for this show, for example, I have to get guests, I have to prepare and market, I have to do a script for the show, what I want to accomplish in the show. It's a sort of production. It mightn't be a TV production or all those different things, but it's a level more than just pull the phone out, smile, shoot, talk, couple stupidness, and keep going.
And I think too, because if you really think about it, even if it's just like a person who's making a videos like yours, streaming like you, or making a video where they're just talking to the camera. If you really think about the jobs that they're doing, jobs that people get paid real money to do,
Yeah,
they're oftentimes the researcher, they're the writer, they're the director, producer, wardrobe, hair, makeup. If they do the makeup, they're lighting, which means they're the gaffers, the best boys, the grip. They're the talent on screen. They're the first ADs. They're the
Right.
editors, and the editors includes sound mixer, the colorist, the cut editor. Then they're the marketer, the analyst. They're the graphic designer if they're doing thumbnails. These are so many decisions they're making. It is a video production. You're not just sitting down and having conversations with me, or you're not just sitting down and talking to the camera. That's people get paid big money to do all of those things. And people like you and me do it all on our own.
right.
So we really need to see it as a production because it is. It's work.
I'm glad you said that because at least you inspire me to think that I'm doing something sensible. So I need to keep going and raise the bar because I mean I want to have more people assisting or getting on the team. Like I said, it's just a matter. And that's part of it. The recruiting part is also a part of the production because you got to find the right people who you could trust with certain content or certain aspects to be able to deliver what you're trying to accomplish. Not just because they have skills, can dribble the basketball between the legs, meaning they can dribble the basketball between the legs the way to get the production that you want, right? So we see that in NBA and so forth all the time, right? So a lot of people are watching but not building. That statement there that was made. What do you think is holding back Bahamians back, holding more Bahamians back from actually creating and participating, and not just in YouTube, but in the whole creative space? Because I mean, YouTube is one, but like we said, I know some artists in the music industry who just sat on their music for years because they said that they didn't trust the industry. So that would have been something that happened in their space. But what about in your industry? What else might be holding people back that we need to knock the barriers down on?
Speaking from experience and the people that I have spoken to, I think it's just uh, the main issue is just having to do everything on your own. It's burnout, and it's the fear and doubt that comes in when you're doing it by yourself. I think if we had more people working together and collaborating on these things, it would not only be more fun, but we can hold people accountable. One person may be fearful to press publish or to release or to whatever it might be, but the other isn't, so our strengths are others weaknesses and their weaknesses, and vice versa. So for me too, that's been the hardest thing, doing everything by myself. That's always been the bottleneck of creating, because even when it comes to, like, let's say, my favorite part is writing and editing, not necessarily the production part of it. Now it may, instead of only taking like 2 weeks to finish a video, now it might take me months because I'm dreading doing the production part. If someone else could do it or would help me with it, then it would get done much faster because I have the help, or I don't have to dread it anymore. So just from my experience, I know for me, that's what has held me back, just having to do it alone.
But we're doing it alone, most of us, because we're comfortable with space ourselves. Bahamians tend not to like to collaborate for some strange reason. We don't see the power of teamwork, right? In general, but minor in sports we do, but or even in politics, yeah, we know all those things like that. But otherwise, go ahead.
Sorry, but that's completely antithetical, in my opinion, to creative work. You cannot be a creative person wanting to do things like TV and film or music or video, any kind of video production, and not be willing to work with people. It's in the word production.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a team thing. So that's probably one of the things. Then to go back to an earlier question of what's
Mindset.
holding people back. Like, you have to, I know it's difficult, and sometimes we meet people or work with people who are terrible to work with, but we can't let that discourage us from collaborating and meeting people. We need people to do productions.
Awesome. So, folks, if you're just joining us, this is something to think about with Dale Happy Knows. We have Danielle Minnis here, and she's sharing a lot of nuggets on how we can use and leverage YouTube in particular, but the whole creative space in order for us to be able to tell our stories. Because we want to tell our stories so that at the end of the day, in some words they say the hunter is the one whose stories is recorded, not the hunted. But so I don't know if we being hunted or we hunting, but whatever it is, at the end of the day, we want to make sure our stories get out there. Particularly in the Bahamas, we have such rich storytellers and such rich history and present activities that we should be telling stories on, and that helps actually people understand what is happening. So if you have questions or comments, please draw them in the comments section, and we'll endeavor to answer them. Awesome. So Miss Daniela, sorry if I chop up everybody's name so much. That's why they name me Happy. But we're not just talking content, we're talking systems. What kind of structures, support, ecosystems are missing that would allow creators to grow sustainably? Is there something from a governmental point of view or private sector point of view or whatever? that could help
Um,
besides education?
besides education, okay.
I mean, we
Um,
already said that that's a major part, so that's why I said it. Unless you want to
yeah.
elaborate on it, then that's fine too. Yeah.
I don't think um there is, besides finances, I don't really think there's anything the government or private sectors can do. In fact, I think creative work gets worse when the governments
I
or
agree.
corporations try to involve themselves into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's needed is just some, in terms of support, is as we mentioned before, is education. Is people knowing that these structures and support exists. If it doesn't, that we get that support, whether it be rentals for equipment, whether it be mentorship programs, mentorship opportunities to help teach the younger generations about the nuances of the industry, whatever industry it is. Um, whether it be but it's more software, more software, just things like that. But it's definitely not the governments or corporations. It has to be structures and support and ecosystems that we, the creatives, create and sustain. I know one thing I want to do, and something I'm going to launch by the end of this year, is my own YouTube channel, and it's going to be about uh, YouTube discourse, YouTube education, and creative storytelling in general. That's going to be my part in helping to provide some kind of structure or support. And hopefully, it does kind of build an ecosystem in that I want to build a community of like-minded creatives from especially from the Bahamas and the global South, so that we can get stories out there that are usually not being told. I mean, of course, I wouldn't complain if I have American viewers or
Right,
Canadian
right.
viewers, but I really do want to see and help uh, the Bahamians and members of the global South tell their stories, and that's how I'd like to do it.
Yeah. So the global South, for those who don't know, how do you define it? Yeah.
It's just like countries that have been historically more economically disadvantaged. We don't really have a say on the global stage. So the global north would be like America and Canada and like South Korea and stuff like that. While a lot of the Caribbean and a lot of South America, most of Asia, like in Africa, places like that, we don't have as much economic pull. And so um, th- that- that's what I would consider to
Right.
be the global South.
Yeah. So talk about that economic pull. When we go back to the question on what the government or private sector, one of the things I think they could do is hire more of our uh, indigenous storytellers to do their promotions and do their marketing and tell their company stories in a creative way that Bahamians could relate to, and then their businesses can thrive. The money will flow into the creative environment, and then they will be able to do more things to expand their own opportunities. And I'm thinking that's how they can help. But I agree with you. Don't let them be in their governance. That's another story. Right. Cool. Awesome. Surprising you telling such a good story. These audience ain't asking no questions. That's not normal. No. Okay, let's go to the next one. So you have emphasized collaboration over isolation. Production by inherently means that we should be collaborating. What does real collaboration look like in this a space where a lot of creators are used to working alone, right? I have three close persons to me in the art world, painting. My son Dominic, my cousin John Cox, and Toby Lunn. John Cox is operating at a different level of collaboration, but the other two pretty much do a lot of stuff on their own, and then they interface with other people, and then they get frustrated, and then they back out, and then they get frustrated, and then they back. But they keep prodding, and they are successful. But a lot of people just give up, right? What would you speak to that in terms of what does a real collaboration look like? I don't know if you're familiar with them, but particularly, or maybe any of them. Yeah.
I'm not familiar, but I'm not quite sure how to answer the question because collaboration would look different for each person and each project. It can, yeah, it's I don't quite know how to answer. It can just be where two or more people have defined roles like director and writer and whatnot, and they stick to their roles. It could be something where yeah, they stick to their roles, but when they see something they can speak up and give their opinions, and the final, like the director or the showrunner, the
Right.
one head person is the final say. It could be like a what's it called? Like a consulting kind of thing where a person's only called when they need it. Sometimes collaboration can just be paid work where, like I said, if I'm having trouble with the production side of things, I want someone to shoot while in front of the camera, then I hire someone for that time.
Right.
It looks different for the person and the project. Persons just have to find whatever system works best for them. If something feels wrong or if something is moving slow, they see this like a bottleneck. They just have to adjust and kind of have to figure it out on their own, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I guess it could also be horizontally because you have content, the space where the actual content is made, and the touch points for content made, and then there's a space where there's logistics around the content, whether it's getting the guests or booking the time where the guests can come on and doing some of the marketing stuff or the promotions, whether to put this short up at this time of day or that time of day, all that kind of stuff. That's a whole production in running the thing. But I get you what you were saying. Cool. So we're questioning who owns our stories, and I know the Ministry of Education and particularly Chris Davis has been on I'm blocking his name right now. They have been on a run to try and own our stories or change what stories are being told in our storybooks. And I see videos as a storybook. It's just not on paper, it's digitally, but if we do it in that light, then it can be educational and it can be entertaining at the same time, and it can also, be different things to different people. So the question on who owns our stories, what does narrative sovereignty actually look like for Bahamians and the Global South creators in this digital age?
What does it look like? It looks like, well, let's say for Bahamians, for example, it just looks like Bahamians having the freedom to tell the stories that they want to tell, especially if it's about themselves, without gatekeepers, without people telling them that it has to be this way, that way, this, that, or the next. I think once once creators or once filmmakers, storytellers stay true to themselves or the story, the culture, the characters of the or the talent in that story, then um, that narrative sovereignty would come through. I like to use this example a lot where even if one doesn't necessarily try to make things something deep or try to make something culturally relevant or something resonant,
Mm-hmm.
even if as long as you stay authentic to the story and the characters, it will be. So for example, like let's just take like a zombie film. That's not necessarily something one would think of that would be deeply resonant or culturally relevant. But let's say I said, okay, I just want to make it, I'm not trying, I just want to make it a zombie film made in the Bahamas. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's a place that probably a lot of people would recognize or that they go to? So let's just make it at a hotel. And I just want to stay true to the characters and make, of course, because it's in the Bahamas, a lot of the characters in the story will be Bahamian. Well, just being placed at a hotel, themes about class in the Bahamas is gonna show up in the film, whether I wanted to or not. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
already getting deep or political in a way just by placing it in the Bahamas in a place that most of us already frequent or
Mm-hmm.
know about. I know there are some jobs where like nannies at hotels where persons can watch kids while the
Mm-hmm.
parents, right? So now imagine a zombie film where uh, the workers can't leave the hotel, they can't get to their own kids, but they're watching someone else's kids. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there are messages and themes like already baked in. Of course, the religion is gonna, as being a Christian nation in the Bahamas, they're gonna, if we're gonna stay true to the characters, at least a few of the Bahamian characters have to be religious in some way, especially Christian, right? So religious themes are gonna show up. So
Mm-hmm.
even without me trying to do anything deep, trying to have any kind of uh, special theme or anything like that. There's this, I guess, narrative sovereignty where trying to stay authentic brings about the culture of the people, brings about important themes and messages, whether I wanted to or not. So I think when I talk about and to just to go back to the question, what does narrative sovereignty look like? It
Mm-hmm.
just is being authentic to the characters and to the situation, to the story, and then the culture will come out, the themes will come out.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned gatekeepers a couple times during the show. So from a gatekeeper point of view, then wouldn't gatekeepers be more inclined to be in spaces like TV production or like where there's somebody else's image or agenda that is trying to be um, radiated, whereas in a creative space, it's the artists, the creator themselves, um, perspective that they're trying to put out, so they really don't have anybody to tell them, or they shouldn't have anybody to tell them what they could put out, what they can't put out.
Yep. And that's what's so great about something like YouTube. You could make a full feature film, put it on YouTube and make millions of views if, you know, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it out there. It could be distributed through YouTube that way. You have you can break storytelling conventions, um, tell the story you want to tell. So yes, it's about the artists and what they want, what they think, what they want to put out there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So we always looking for things that people aren't speaking of, and particularly opportunities, because we have a nation who somehow be stuck on doctor, lawyer, accounting mindset that we try to tell our children all the time. Oh, you have to go to school, get good grades, become a doctor, lawyer, accountant, maybe engineer, whatever, and so forth, right? Um, Being a creative, my cousin John Cox, as you mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, when he went to school and said he wanted to be an artist, and that was some fireworks. But we got through that, and all of the antics that came about when he first came home from school, looking like an artist in those days, with all of the different things, facial expressions and enhancements. Let's put it that way. Then, if we look at all of that and we move forward, if someone is listening to us right now, where do you think the biggest opportunity on YouTube in particular that we are currently overlooking?
Where do you think the biggest opportunity is on YouTube? I hope this answers the question, but I think the biggest, this is going to sound cheesy, but the biggest opportunity kind of lies within ourselves. By that, especially if I'm talking from a Bahamian point of view. But when it comes to YouTube specifically, like I said earlier, it's not like there's a lot of Bahamians doing YouTube, at least to a professional level where they're making it, they're doing YouTube as a living, right? So no matter what you do, you could play video games, you could do commentary, you could do video essays. It doesn't matter. There is no one else out there on the space doing the same thing like you, right? So as long as you are, again, true to yourself, and I would say to add elements of who you are, including your culture, there's no one else's content that's going to look or sound like yours. So that's the biggest opportunity that's there. There are hundreds of, for example, if there are Let's Plays, there are hundreds of people playing the newest Resident Evil game right now. But how many Bahamians are playing it right now? I don't think there is not one that's at a high level doing that right now. So the biggest opportunity is you, I would say.
That's powerful, because we all were put on this very special and unique for our own individual purpose. So we just need to find our purpose and go kaboom. Get the right people, the mentors, and make it work. Cool. Okay. So if we were to truly align creators, institutions, and audiences, etc., what could Bahamian storytelling ecosystem actually look like in 5 to 10 years? I wouldn't even say 5 to 10 years, Madam, because I would say 1 to 5 years. Because like I mentioned to people before, digital is so explosive. We have to do is think and believe, as we say, what we think about, we become, etc. And it will happen. So, and you already have a whole, I would think at least 30 to 40% of the workforce is now in the digital generations. So that's an opportunity by itself that we could maximize if we were to tap into digital properly or sustainably. So what would be your answer to this?
I'm actually going to make a video covering something like this. But if we're talking specifically about YouTube, what I would like to see is dedicated kind of like Bahamian YouTube scene. But that means for me is at least starting with at least 20 creators full time, making content on YouTube. The majority of those channels are making content. They're not just Bahamians, but they're making content about the Bahamas.
Right.
So independent news and journalism, education about just education in general about the Bahamas. Or I know there are a lot of like animal channels, that the education channels, but let's ours be about like the ocean or our marine life, for example, and stuff like that. And then hopefully there would be enough to where now we can have, I think the word is self-referential, not self, something along those lines, for lack of a better word, content. Where, for example, if there's a drama YouTuber, they're covering drama between two Bahamians or Bahamians and
Right.
someone else. If it's a film reviewer, then they're uh, making reviews of Bahamian films, music reviewer of Bahamian music, things like that. And then for those that aren't specifically about Bahamians, they're still relevant enough where they're big, and the stuff that they do, like if they're doing sketches, for example, it may not be about the Bahamas, but we still see Bahamian locations. We
Right.
still hear and Bahamian accents and dialects, Bahamian sense of humor, things like that. So that's the kind of ecosystem I would like to see on YouTube in the next 1 to 5 or 5 to 10 years. A group of, it's not going to be a huge because we're a small nation, but some kind of scene, sorry, some type of
Mm-hmm.
creative scene where we're working together and we're making content about ourselves, about each other, about our culture, um, and it's being recognized on a global scale where, and I don't want Bahamians to think that because the stuff our content is about the Bahamas, people aren't gonna watch it from America and Germany and stuff. We see
Right.
it
Right.
all the time. Videos about China, videos about Germany, videos about India, videos about St. Lucia, about small countries most persons have never even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Get millions of views from people who aren't even from that country. They're just interested in being entertained or in getting information. So yeah, that's what I would like to see. What would you like to see?
So from that perspective, right, they are. I have this nagging thing that turns me off when I see Bahamian commercials. I'm moving away from YouTube particularly, but and in the commercial, I would see people in the background or moving about, and I know that wasn't filmed in the Bahamas.
Mm, mhm,
And I'm thinking that we have so much scenery that if we have people out there just filming and stockpiling and categorizing and I don't know, maybe put a 1 cent or whatever the economics is to say, if you want to use this content in your commercials, use this content. And I'm thinking that people who watch the commercials now, from me buying our favorite foods, instead of seeing all these other people, we see our own people.
mhm,
We might be more inclined to buy the food, and then our own economy will grow. Because what you're touching on now is the new built environment, which I always which we created for something to think about, where we talk about how we can become sustainable, and it's built on the 5 pillars of sun, sand, sea, digital, and people. And sun, sand, sea is not necessarily in terms of the traditional sun, sand, and sea what tourists come to, but light industries. You talk about the marine space. There's a friend of mine who I haven't heard from him since COVID, but hopefully he's still doing well. But he used to come down and he always just asks me why, because he comes down to win these shark fishing type tournaments or whatever you call them. And he said, this is a $2 billion business, $2 billion industry that Bahamians aren't getting anything out of. Why don't we develop it ourselves? Right? Because it's just like people come here, use our space, and go. Take the experience. So we're happy with tourism. But anything other than tourism is, no, okay, we don't want to spend too much time on it. So from a 1 to 5 year point of view, like I was saying, that with digital, all of these things could happen very fast. And the ITU and the World Bank, I think, said it best when they said investments in brick and mortar will take, or investments in digital will be 1,000 times faster in return on your money than brick and mortar. And somehow we got to get into this space because the Bahamas has been, from at least 30 years ago, probably the most connected or digitally covered space in North America, right, per square mile per country. I'm not saying we're the best at every area, every square mile, but at least we connected or we have coverage. A lot of parts of the United States and so forth don't have coverage, but we have it at least 95 to or more percent, at least until I left. I don't know if those numbers still exist, but that's what the standard was back then. And that's only in 2014 when I left BTC. So I'm thinking that that ecosystem could easily grow. And if we have storytellers telling these stories, because we always, I don't know if you know Valentine Grimes. Was it Grimes? What was Valentine? He used to be in the plays. I'd done this a lot.
Sounds familiar.
Right. But just the whole thing with James Catling and all of those storytellers, you used to just go there and be on your edge of your seat, laughing and locked in and engaged, straight through, listening to the stories. You even have some storytellers in the parliament, or used to have them, but so they used to lock you in. But that storytelling is so powerful. I just wish I could learn a little bit more, but I watch YouTube just to listen to these, when these people be telling these stories with just sound, and just a still picture. I play them in the background, and I figured something can click in my head because they keep you locked in for almost a whole hour, and I'm like, how are they doing that? Right? But that's a skill that you all have, and I applaud you all for that.
Something you said, something you hit on, makes me want to expand on something about, not necessarily about the Bahamian storytelling ecosystem, but about its global effects of something I want to see. I really would like to, probably would be closer to the 10-year mark, but I want to see, because we're telling our stories and because hopefully it'll be seen globally, what I would like to happen is I would like the rest of the world to finally start getting information about us correct. Like, if I don't know if you've seen the show Outer Banks, but there was supposed to be a Bahamian character on that did not have a Bahamian accent. Anyone that was supposed to be Bahamian didn't sound Bahamian. A lot of shows also play reggae when persons are supposed to be in the Bahamas. Like, where's the scrape, where's the so-called Gombe, you know what I mean? Because we're telling our stories, and I would like for eventually for other persons trying to tell our stories or trying to come over and benefit from our sun, sound, and sea on screen, is to get the information right, because they've seen it and heard it directly from us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something I definitely would like to be a result of our strong Bahamian storytelling ecosystem once it gets to that point.
Cool. So we have a comment or question here. Let's see what it says. What inspired you to get into media? Share a bit about the challenges you face, not only as a young person, but a female trying to succeed in a male-dominated space. And this is from Anne-Marie Miller.
Okay. What inspired me to get into media? I don't think there was ever an event or anything that happened to get me interested in media. Like I said, I kind of grew up around it. Both my parents were into media. My mother is also somewhat of a musician, a singer. I have two younger brothers. The middle child is very much into computer systems and games and things like that, which is also creative in its own right. And then the youngest, my second brother, is into music as well.
Mhm.
So I'm just surrounded by. I was always surrounded by creativity and storytelling, artistic work. So I guess I don't know if I could say there was ever a moment I was inspired. It's just always been there. I feel like I've always had the liking and the passion for it. When it comes to challenges I've faced, um, besides the obvious, like any kind of financial stuff,
Mhm.
um, challenge I faced as a young person is, I guess, just before YouTube, it was opportunities, finding places where, um, finding places where I can go to besides with my family,
Mhm.
um, to to engage in meaningful collaboration and creative works. There was also church, the media team at church, but
Mhm.
outside of that, it was difficult to to find things and things that I'll be interested in. Um, it is uh when it was more practical, it was more of a male dominated space. When I started digital media studies and started going into the more theoretical side of things, it was more a female dominated space. And so I kind of had um, a bit of both. Um, the only other challenges I would say I would have faced that I didn't speak because I also kind of spoke about having to do stuff on my own
Mhm.
when I'm not around family or church. Um, I think maybe the only other challenge um, would realistically be um, for me perfectionism because I want to tell the story that I want to tell accurately and authentically, and
Mhm.
I want to make it as good as I can make it. And sometimes when you try to be perfect, the project doesn't end up getting done. It doesn't,
Mhm.
and uh, it's better to be done than not done. You know,
Overdone.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's been a challenge. Just getting over that perfectionism, finishing it, and putting it out there into the world. I would say.
Yeah, and and that's a common thing because I had to go through that in engineering at Batalco, and I specifically use the word Batalco, not BTC, because that would have been during the eras before it became BTC. Where as somebody who went to school and studied engineering, and particularly in this space, you tend to see things differently, and you want to make it so right that you might spend too much time dwelling on it, and then people get the idea that you're just trying to show them up. But it's not about showing them up. It's just a matter of like you say, from a theory point of view, what's supposed to happen or what could happen, and you know what you could achieve because you've done it before. But then other people haven't seen that. So now, how do you lead them to that space so that they could be on the same plane as you in understanding? Maybe not the same skills as you, but at least they will be thinking on the same level. And then you build teams like that. So thanks, Anne Marie, for your
Oh,
comment.
although it hasn't particularly been a challenge for me, I know that for a lot of women in male dominated spaces, sometimes the fear of looking stupid or making mistakes prevents us from trying. I think there was a teacher, it was computer science professor, who there was this coding assignment he he gave out, and I believe it went where um the professor would look at the students' work to see how they were doing, and a lot of the female students, their stuff would still be blank. There was nothing there, whereas the male students were at least trying to do something. But when they looked at the professor looked at the history, it was that the female students were trying, but they kept erasing it because they were afraid of people seeing
Not
like that they
accepting
did
it.
something wrong or and I want to encourage other women in male dominated spaces to not, it's difficult, but to not have that fear of looking stupid or of looking like you're falling into the like women can't do things that men can mindset, not to fall into that. Um like we all make mistakes, we all have to start somewhere, and it it wasn't difficult for me because I have a support system with my parents and family that I was told daily of how smart and important and how talented I was. I don't need to look for a kind of
Right.
external validation or anything like that. But um, and I generally don't tend to care about other person's opinions if it's not
Destructive.
constructive.
Right.
Yeah, if it's not a constructive critique. But yeah, I know that is though an issue for women in male dominated spaces. So I did want to bring that bring that up.
Right. And I can't say what it is from a woman's perspective in a male dominated spaces, but I could tell you from my experience playing baseball and being the white boy in the Bahamas, and when I went to Miami to play ball, I was the Cuban boy, and then when I went up to New York, I was the white boy again. I wasn't the black boy, but then when I'm over the hill with my friends, back to the white boy, and you're just bouncing all over the place. So I know that could try and shatter your confidence, but if you really understand one thing or get to the point of understanding that don't compare yourself to what other people think about you or what they think you should fit in a compartment in the world, but compare yourself to what your potential is that the good Lord gave you, right? And measure against that. I tell people I don't compete against other people, right? I compete against myself. So, and that could be negative from the point of view sometimes I drive myself too hard to get things done. But if you're competing against yourself, then you have a measure that will be consistent that you could measure against, and you could build confidence when you see progress. Whereas if you're using other people as your benchmark, that could be one thing today and another thing tomorrow, and something way out of whack don't make no sense the next day. And then you'll be following and flip-flopping all over the place, and then next thing you know, you're doing some things that really is not healthy, whether to yourself or to somebody else, right? So try to focus on what the good Lord instilled in you, and to make those things better for yourself. So as we get down some of these heavy questions now, there's only a couple of them. I don't overload people with them, but what one thing would you challenge every Bahamian creator or future creator to start doing differently today?
Okay, I'll speak to because it'd be different things for each person, but I'll talk to the future
Yeah.
creator.
Mm-hmm.
The okay, this may be a little bit long, but for the future creator, the common advice most YouTubers or persons interested in YouTube would say is to just start, to just do it. Like I said earlier, done is better than perfect. And I know it might sound a bit contradictory, but I would say don't just do it. There's three things I think you should have first before starting um well, any creative work, but especially for anything if it's YouTube or digital, so Twitch, Instagram, anything along those lines. The first is to know your point of view, your perspective, what it is that you want to say and put out there into the world. Um, I know for me, I know, and when I start my channel, um, I want to make sure that my Bahamian identity is a part of the channel. I also want to make sure that because I am typically a very analytical, literal, usually more serious kind of person. I want to bring that to my videos as well. I want to have the structure and systems so that it's simple and easy to follow. That um, if there's new terminologies and glossaries and words and discussions that isn't well known or something that I made up, that there are stuff like PDFs people can take away. But basically, it's putting myself into my work and I'm making sure I understand what I want people to take away, and I'm centering my content around that. So the first is to have a point of view. The second thing I would say to have is to understand what your relational presence is. So when it comes to online media, no matter what it is, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, parasocial relationships are inevitable. So a parasocial relationship is when a person feels like they know or have some kind of relationship with a celebrity or YouTuber that doesn't know they exist, right? It is go even if you tell your community constantly, we're not friends, I don't know you, which some people do. It's it's not gonna work. People are still gonna see you as a certain thing, right? So as creators, we should before we upload understand one who we are, who our intended audience is, and the kind of content we create, and try to understand what that parasocial relationship is going to be like, that relational presence, and try to either mitigate it or to lean into it. So, for example, if I wanted to do advice content for young girls, then it is likely that they're going to see me as an older sister, or maybe if I'm a bit older, as like an auntie type of person, right? So I could either, if I don't want that, try and whether it's the way I dress, whether it's the way I shoot, whether it's the way I talk, try to change that narrative. Or if I want to lean into it, then I can call my community members, sisters, um like have a set that looks like my room and look like we're having a sleepover kind of thing. So and if you were doing the exact same kind of content, the same advice to young girls, you would be seen as like a role model or father figure type. So again, know who you are, what your content is, um, who and who you're talking to, who your intended audience is, so you understand that parasocial relationship ahead of time. And then the third thing I would say is just to know what your I call it pattern of progression, which is just in film and TV, we have story structures like 3-act structure, hero's journey, things like that. In YouTube, I think it's more storytelling comes more, it's more about, especially for certain genres like commentary and video essays and reaction stuff, it's about ideas and the way your ideas move and transform and evolve. There are people, I know I'm one of them, who would watch a 2-hour, 3-hour video of a person just talk about a show that I've never watched before. I have no intention of watching. I just want to hear them talk about it and say, who they liked, who they didn't like. I want to hear their ideas. They're just sitting down talking, and I'm hearing their ideas move from one from one thing to another. That's basic storytelling, but for YouTube, I call it pattern of progression. It's hard to explain more than that. In my video, I'll explain more about pattern of progression because unlike story structures, pattern of progression is different for each individual, right? It's about how you think. So for the future creator, don't just do it. Have those three things. You don't need necessarily a bunch of money, a bunch of equipment,
Right.
a bunch of help, even though, again, at some point, hopefully early on, you need to collaborate. You don't need all those things to just start, but you do need those three things, or you should have those three things, I would say. POV, your point of view, your relational presence, and your pattern of progression.
Right. And then there's two things there. Well, not two things there, but two things to keep in mind. One is, are you streaming live like this show, or are you creating a video before and just uploading it? Because those workflows are slightly different, right? Cool. All right, so my big question of the day, which I ask all guests. For the young Bahamian watching tonight, what one rainmaking opportunity can pursue right now to turn their creativity into enterprise and help build the new built environment? Because, people tend to only follow in the money. Right? I don't know what the Bahamians are on this money grab thing. At least that's my perspective on what's happening.
This is another question I don't know how to answer. If there was truly a rain-making opportunity, I would have done it by now, and I would have been swimming in money right now.
All right, so that's part of the answer then. You have to make it.
Rain-making opportunity. Whatever opportunity it is, it's definitely gonna not be quick and easy. It's gonna take work. I guess
Lord said that this whatever whatever he deems worthy is simple, not necessarily easy.
I guess I'll just try to stay true to the topic and say that there are stick to YouTube. YouTube, again, there are people right now that are millionaires from playing video games on YouTube. I'm not saying that, again, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's just like how being a Hollywood actor isn't easy. Like being a famous filmmaker or musician isn't easy. But I guess YouTube is the opportunity that can potentially make you a literal millionaire if you do it right. If you're if you tell the right stories, if you resonate with people, and sometimes even if you just do what some persons are doing and just try to, I wouldn't suggest it, but try to chase views. It's a way to make a ton of money. But again, lots of people are trying to chase views right now. The way to make money without having to worry about algorithms and views is to really tell good stories and that resonate with people, that reach people, that inspire them, or that make them feel things. It doesn't always necessarily even need to be like positive, like happy. Sometimes people want to feel sad. Sometimes people want to feel angry if it's like about justice or things like that. So yeah, I guess I'll just stick with YouTube.
Yeah, and YouTube is great because I've seen some statistics and some projections as though this thing is going to 10x itself in the next 1 to 5 years. in terms of opportunities that's going to be available. So get on board, get familiar with it, try to learn the nuances of it. And what I found is if you try to follow or make YouTube the engine that makes you money, YouTube itself, that company, then you're going to struggle. But most of the people that I know who have been making some money, they make it off of affiliate marketing. That's what I call it. I don't know what the real name is. Where they might endorse somebody's product and the products are sold through you, or you have your own products that you then sell. So it's
I think I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good distinction to make, especially for Bahamians where we're not a part of the YouTube partnership program.
right.
There is sponsorships and brand deals, but I think the better thing for Bahamians and creatives, if they're working through YouTube, is to get money through the community. So, for example, there's stuff like Patreon. People can pay like anything from $1 to $5 to $10 to $20 to whatever to support you and get additional content. Or like you said, they can sell things, merchandise, or courses, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, when it comes to YouTube and Twitch and things online, especially for Bahamians, we need to focus more on the community aspect, because that's where the majority of the fulfillment, yes, but also of any kind of money really is going to come from. Again, there are kind of ways around the YouTube partnership program thing, but if you don't have the ability, then yeah, you got to think outside the box.
Awesome. Well, Miss Danielle, I would like to really thank you for taking the time. I asked for an hour. You give me an hour and a half almost. So that's awesome. I got to pay you back somehow. I don't know how you pay you back, but one day we will be sitting under a tree laughing about this day. And you remember when this was blah, blah, and telling some more stories, right? I look forward to seeing you do great things. I have had nothing but people talk highly of you, your work ethic and so forth and skills. So I just look and hope and pray that synergy happens where the ecosystem can happen so that people like yourselves could blossom and show your true value to this nation and the world. So thank you kindly for joining us here on Something to Think About.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and hopefully you enjoyed your stay. And we'll come back again sometime to tell us more about once you launch. What your experience has been like.
Definitely will do that.
Cool. So thanks again, and I will be in touch. So folks, we've been thinking about how storytelling is changing, wondering if we really, for what it requires of us, and questioning whether we are going to keep watching or finally start building. Because this conversation ain't just about YouTube, it's about ownership, alignment, and our responsibility. The future of our stories ain't somewhere out there. It's in what we choose to create right here, right now. So the real question is, what role do you play in the future? Because every shift, every system, every moment starts with a thought. And as we think, we become. And what we radiate, we attract. And so forth. And so what we want you to do is to think about all these things that we've talked about today. Figure out how you could leverage it. Reach out to myself or to Ms. Danielle on how you could play in this space and become a greater creator and leverage the YouTube engine that is available and accessible to us, because not every engine is as available and accessible as YouTube is. And that's one of the reasons why I like it, and so forth. So more importantly, act on it. But take, for example, those 3 things that Danielle mentioned that you want to do before you take action. Enjoy, have fun, and compare your progress to yourself and your potential. Something to think about.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative, 242.